Have you ever felt like you're living a life that isn't truly yours, as if every yes you give to others is, in truth, a quiet no to yourself? Maybe you're not tired from working too much, but from carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. Draining relationships, suffocating obligations, roles you took on just to please, not because they were yours to begin with. But what if I told you there's a quiet way out? No noise, no drama, just truth. Today, you won't hear packaged advice. You'll hear what? Deep down you already know, but keep avoiding. Peace begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself. Letting go of what weighs you down may feel unsettling at first, but that's exactly where freedom begins. Stay with me until the end of this video. It might be the subtle, yet necessary, nudge you've been needing to finally choose yourself. We live in an age where time slips through our fingers. Every second is filled with notifications, deadlines, goals, and that constant feeling that we're always late for something. But what if I told you there's another rhythm available, one hidden between the lines of daily life? A calmer, more conscious pace that doesn't require drastic changes or spiritual retreats, just a new way of seeing what's already around us. Life doesn't need more speed, it needs more presence. And that presence can begin with something as simple as drying a glass with attention or adjusting your pillow before sleep. There's silent power in the details we overlook. Instead of fighting to control everything, we can choose to see, truly see, what we're doing. Not to be more productive, but to be more human. Taking your shoes off after coming home, for example, can become a sacred pause if done with intention. You feel the floor, take a deep breath, reconnect. It's not about the shoes, it's about what that moment represents, the end of the rush, the beginning of well-deserved rest. And when you begin to notice these micro moments, you begin to notice yourself, your body, your mind, the emotions you've been pushing away. Picture an ordinary person working behind the counter of a small neighborhood shop. Someone who spends most of the day on their feet, handling people, inventory, numbers. They come home, and instead of remaining on autopilot, they choose something different. They sit on the floor instead of the couch. Just that. A small gesture that breaks the pattern. Sitting there, they notice the texture of the rug, the sounds around them, perhaps even their own heartbeat. And in that shift, a new space opens up within. A space without targets, without the need to perform, just a place to breathe. This is how transformation begins, not by trying to change everything at once, but by changing how you show up in the smallest acts. Opening a window doesn't need to be automatic. It can be a fresh start. Ironing a shirt doesn't need to be a chore. It can be a form of care. And so, without fanfare, your day begins to change texture. It's not what you do that changes everything, but how you do it. Ancient philosophy understood this. Socrates, before speaking about truth, paid attention to the tone of his own voice. For him, wisdom wasn't accumulation, it was a way of being in the world. Likewise, we too can choose to be fully present, even in the most ordinary moments. It's not about perfection, but intention. And when you move with intention, life responds with clarity. You might be asking, why place so much importance on such simple things? Because that's where real change begins. Mental clarity, emotional stability, a sense of being centered, all of it starts when you stop living in the later and begin living in the now. Choose one everyday gesture, just one. It could be tying your shoelace, turning off the light before bed, brushing your hair. Do it with full presence. See what happens. Notice how your body reacts, how your mind quiets down. In the end, we're not really looking for more time. We're searching for more meaning within the time we already have. And here's the paradox. When you give your full attention to the present moment, it seems to stretch, as if the now had more room to breathe, and so do you. When we become truly present, another question inevitably arises. What are we carrying with us every single day? And I'm not talking about backpacks, bags, or to-do lists. I mean the weight that can't be seen. Old resentments, borrowed worries, expectations that were never truly ours. Many people go through life as if their pockets were full of stones. They never realize they were carrying. And over time, we learn to normalize that weight. Pain becomes a companion. Discomfort turns into the background. But it doesn't have to be that way. I once met a man in his early 60s who worked as a self-employed gardener in a small rural town. On the surface, he lived a simple life. But just a few minutes of conversation revealed that his simplicity was the result of deliberate choices. He used to say, "I don't take to tomorrow what I can resolve today, and what I can't resolve, I leave on the ground and move on." He wasn't free from problems, but there was a lightness in the way he existed, as if he had learned how to walk without dragging the world on his back. It made me realize that the secret may not be about bearing more, but choosing better. Life requires strength, yes, but it also requires the wisdom to notice when we're carrying more than we need. 2. Sometimes we insist on maintaining ties that no longer make sense, upholding identities that no longer represent us, or listening to voices that only serve to diminish us. Why? Out of fear of disappointing others, out of habit, or simply because we don't know what to do with the silence that would come next. But silence, uncomfortable as it may seem at first, is where the most important answers are born. There's a nearly frightening kind of freedom in letting go of what no longer serves us. Frightening because it strips away what's familiar, even when that familiarity is a burden. But also liberating, because once your hands are empty, you finally have space for something new. How many times have you felt trapped in an outdated version of yourself just because you thought you needed to keep it alive for others? How many times have you avoided saying no for fear of seeming selfish, when in truth you were betraying yourself? Emotional self-regulation begins here. Understanding that you don't have to carry it all. You can choose where to place your energy. You can choose what to accept and what to release. And most of all, you can choose to forgive yourself for the times you didn't know how to do that before. Because yes, growth is painful, but staying where you no longer belong hurts far more. And since you've come this far with me, let me offer an invitation. If this message resonates with you, if something in these reflections feels familiar, why not subscribe to the channel now? But more than that, leave a comment below and tell me, what's the heaviest stone you've ever had to let go of? Maybe it's something you've already overcome, or maybe it's something you're still working on. Share it with us. This space is meant for that, for sincere exchanges without judgment. And who knows, your story might help someone walking the very same path. When we learn to let go of what weighs us down, the next step is to begin again. But starting over isn't simply about changing direction. It's first and foremost about accepting that something has come to an end. And for many, that's the hardest part. We live in a world that romanticizes perseverance, that praises those who never quit, even if it's slowly destroying them from within. Yet there is a deep wisdom in knowing when to stop, in recognizing that pushing forward at any cost is not strength, but stubbornness, and that sometimes the greatest sign of maturity is having the humility to say, "This no longer serves me." I remember a woman in her late 20s who left her career in accounting to open a small, handmade notebook shop. Many people around her thought it was madness. How could she trade stability for uncertainty? But she said, "I can't spend the next 20 years counting down the days until the weekend." And so, afraid but with purpose, she began again. It wasn't easy. There were months when she almost gave up, but little by little, she discovered something more valuable than any steady paycheck: the joy of living with meaning. The point here is not to impulsively abandon everything or idealize radical change. The point is to understand that true new beginnings don't start on the outside. They begin within. They begin when you stop repeating patterns that were never truly yours. When you choose to stand your ground, even if it means disappointing others, when you realize that the discomfort of being yourself, though it may unsettle some, is still less painful than pretending every day. Starting over doesn't mean you failed. It means you had the courage to listen to yourself. And courage, in this loud and hurried world, is one of the rarest acts a person can make. Because while many choose to fit into suffocating expectations, few are willing to listen to that quiet discomfort that whispers, "This isn't who you are." And following that inner call requires more than strength. It demands presence, discernment, and above all, compassion for oneself. Life is far too short to be lived on autopilot. Too short to waste on draining relationships, on work that makes you ill, on routines that numb you. There is a whole world of possibilities waiting for you beyond fear, and maybe what you lack isn't courage, it's permission. Permission to change your mind, to start over, to write a different ending. Now, if you've made it this far, take a deep breath. That alone says a lot about you. Not everyone is willing to look inward. But you did. And that is no small thing. So before we end, I want to invite you again. Subscribe to the channel, not as a reflex, but as a conscious choice. Subscribe because you want to be part of a community that values awareness, deep listening, and shared growth. Here there are no quick fixes, only honest reflections and genuine support. And please share with us, what did this video awaken in you? Have you ever gone through a new beginning? What was it like? What did you learn? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Let's build this space together, one of care, of openness, of true presence. After all, as the Stoics would say, what matters is not how fast you walk, but the direction you choose to go.